What is up? Hopefully you guys are having a wonderful day. Back here with some more Resident Evil content for you. And today I'll be talking about whether Resident Evil 6 should have killed or at the very least retired Chris Redfield instead of what they did with Piers having to be the one that takes the fall in the end. Obviously by the end of this game they kind of allude to the fact that if Chris were to retire he would have given it to Piers to pass on and live on his legacy while Chris would have faded in the sunset, but obviously we know what ultimately happened. Now, I'm not going to go to, do I theorize, like my last video with Jill, that I think they were trying to kill him, because I'm just going to be dead straight with you guys. Capcom, if there's one character I know in Resident Evil they will never kill, it is probably Chris Redfield. And I know some people get this confused and think, oh, maybe it's Leon, but I've always said this before. Leon is the fans' golden boy. He's the fan favorite, the fans' most popular character in the Resident Evil franchise by far. But Chris Redfield is Capcom's golden boy. There is a difference, and trust me, they will kill Leon well before they ever kill Chris. Chris is the character. If Chris ever died, that would be the most shocking thing towards me. Now, can I see a retirement possibly? Yeah, but even that's going to be a stretch, because unfortunately, I just feel like they will find any type of way to get him constantly involved somehow. Because let's just be honest, since Resident Evil 6 in terms of the games, he's the only one that's appeared in the mainline games. And he's been in the last 4 mainline games from 5, 6, 7, and 8. So, would it be a surprise he's in 9? No, not at all. But that's not what we're talking about today. We're going to be talking about whether they should have killed, or at the very least retired, Chris Redfield in Resident Evil 6. Because the answer may surprise people, but I do have my reasons for it. So without further ado, let's get into this. The funny part about Resident Evil 6 Chris Redfield is as time goes on, I'm starting to like it a lot more. Because when I first originally played Resident Evil 6, his campaign was by far my least liked. But over time, it not only became a campaign I liked more, it became not my least liked anymore. That would go to Jake, unfortunately. But I actually began to kind of understand it. I still stand by what I said in a video I made about a year ago, saying that the way he acts, I wished all that emotion was in a previous game in Resident Evil 5 and not Resident Evil 6, but I ultimately get what they're trying to do here. I just wish that was more involving the whole Jill situation, since it would definitely be a lot more of an emotional moment. But over time, I did like his role. I do understand what they're trying to do, and it did give a little unique perspective on a character acting a little bit out of character, but at least in a way where I can at least understand and see where they're going with. With Piers being your cooperative partner in the Chris campaign, it obviously gave a lot of impressions that he could be the successor of Chris Redfield. And overall, I did enjoy the character of Piers, even though I do have a pretty, I guess you can call hot take-ish video in the future on Piers. That may not be something that may make a lot of Piers fans too happy. I don't want to give the illusion that I have something against him, but there is something I do think he should take a little responsibility for, but that's for another day, for another video. But overall, it alluded to by the end of the game that Chris was ultimately going to probably pass on the mantle until the unfortunate death of Piers. But should it have been Piers that died, or should it have been Chris that died, ultimately making a bold step towards the future? And here is my honest answer to that. No. Absolutely not. I don't believe killing Chris Redfield in Resident Evil 6 would be the right decision. I'm glad they didn't do it then, because it wouldn't make sense in this Resident Evil game. Keep in mind, one of the things about Resident Evil 6, it'd probably be the worst game to kill a major character in, just from the fact that it has so many things going on with it. I don't think I have to explain it to you guys, but there's a lot of plot threads. There's 4 campaigns. They're all being interchanged and combined together. You have so many, points of view, so many things being all over the place. It wouldn't get the right impact for a death of a major character in the franchise. If you're going to kill a major character of a franchise, I think the story has to be a lot more of a solo-ish personal story. Not to say that this game didn't have a little bit of a personal thing, but when you have 4 campaigns, it's hard to focus directly on one of them when you have all these other things going on. And to me, I'm not saying I'm opposed to possibly killing a major character, because if it's done right, I don't want it just be done just for shock value. But if it's going to be done right, I feel like there should be a lot less people in this game and a lot more, I guess, smaller cast, because there's just way too many people and way too many plot threads to go to really have it be that impactful. But the other reason, and I think this is one a lot of people will be able to understand, to emphasize the death being hard-hitting and a lot more emotionally impactful, is this small factor. The reason why I believe Capcom originally wanted to pull Jill and kill her, even though this is a theory, I just want to state that from my last video I talked about, just from the fact that Chris, the closest person to Jill, was in that game to witness it. And if he saw Jill die, that would be very impactful not just for the player, but for Chris himself. It would definitely push him over the edge. And I use that same treatment in Resident Evil 6. If Chris is going to die, Jill has to be present for it. It wouldn't make too much sense from an emotional standpoint just to have Jill, his iconic partner, not there for his death, and vice versa. If they were going to kill Jill, Chris has got to be there. It's kind of like if you had a Leon game where he dies, but Ada's not there, and vice versa if you had Ada in the game and she dies, but Leon's not there. It would just be a completely missed opportunity to emphasize that dramatic impact, that emotional value, because obviously the characters know each other and have kind of a thing for each other, similar to how Chris and Jill, etc., etc. If you're going to kill these characters, specific characters have to be around there to emphasize that emotional impact and value. So that's why Chris dying in Resident Evil 6 would not be the right game to kill him off in, personally. But then I get to my whole personal thing. Was it right to kill Piers? Probably not. Honestly, when I look back at Piers, I feel like he probably should have made it out, or at least had another game before they pulled this card. But of all the new characters coming in that game, even though he's not one of my personal favorites, he was one that probably had a lot going for him. A lot of people seem to like Piers and think his death is tragic, which it is, no questions about it. But ultimately, if it's between him and Chris Redfield, we know Capcom's going to take their golden boy any day of the week, because Chris is going to be above everybody. And that even means if it was him and Leon, they're going to take Chris over Leon any day of the week. Now, fans might not like it, but Capcom always looks at Chris a little bit differently, if you catch my drift. But as I always like to say, that is my opinion. I want to hear your guys' opinion. Do you believe Chris Redfield should have died in Resident Evil 6 instead of Piers, or at the very least retired and gave Piers the push for being the next big thing and being one of the newer characters to take over the franchise? Or maybe you're like me, thinking, you know what, I don't mind if someone had to die, but this is just the wrong game to do it in, with so many plot threads and certain characters missing to really have an effective emotional impact in the game. Let me know down below in the comment section. But that is going to be it. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you guys did enjoy this video. And also a little heads up for my next video, since I mentioned a little bit here. I'm going to be talking about Piers and how I think he needs to bear a lot of big responsibility for his actions in Resident Evil 6. But that's going to be on my next one, so stay tuned.